My mother pushed a contract across the kitchen table and pointed to the signature line. "Sign it or you're not my daughter anymore." I stared at the paper. It transferred ownership of my lake house to my entire family. The house I'd spent 8 years saving for. The house I'd bought with my own money. The house my mother had never paid a single dollar toward. I looked at her and asked, "What happens if I don't sign?" She didn't blink. "Then you can forget you ever had a family." I put the pen down. And months later, she would wish she had never given me that choice. My name is Claire Morgan. I was 36 years old, and the lake house was the one place in my life that belonged completely to me. It wasn't a mansion. It was a small wooden house beside a quiet lake, with 3 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, and a dock that stretched into the water. I bought it after my divorce. For years, I'd worked as an architectural designer and saved every extra dollar I could. While my friends traveled, I worked weekends. While other people upgraded their cars, I drove the same 10-year-old sedan. The lake house was my reward. It was where I went when life became too loud. I would sit on the dock with coffee in the morning and watch the mist disappear from the water. No arguments. No expectations. No one telling me what I should do. Just peace. My parents, Linda and Robert, knew how much the house meant to me. My mother even used to say, "One day we'll all spend Christmas there." I always laughed. Maybe. I never thought she'd eventually decide that maybe meant you owe it to us. The problem started when my younger brother, Jason, lost his job. Jason was 32 and had always been impulsive. He had started 3 businesses and closed 3 businesses. My parents always rescued him. When he needed a car, Dad helped. When his rent went up, Mom paid the difference. When his last business failed, they called it a temporary setback. I had stopped giving advice because Jason never wanted it. Then one Friday night, Mom called me. "Claire, we're thinking about using the lake house for family gatherings." I laughed. "You mean renting it?" "No, we want to use it." "That's fine, just let me know when." There was a pause. "We think the family should have permanent access." My smile disappeared. "What does that mean?" "It means you should put the house in a family trust." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Mom explained that Jason was struggling financially, Dad was nearing retirement, and the family needed an asset everyone could benefit from. "So you want me to give you my house?" "We're not asking you to give it away." "You literally just described giving it away." Her voice became cold. "You've always been selfish about that property." I couldn't believe it. I had never prevented them from visiting. I'd let them stay there for weekends. I'd hosted birthdays. I'd even paid for repairs after Jason damaged the dock during a party. But apparently none of that mattered. A few weeks later, Mom invited me to dinner. When I arrived, my parents were sitting at the dining table. Jason was there too. And in front of them was a folder. I immediately knew something was wrong. Dad opened it. "We've had a lawyer prepare an agreement." I stared at him. "For what?" Mom answered. "The lake house." She pushed the contract toward me. "Sign it." I picked it up. The document transferred ownership into a family trust. My parents would have access. Jason would have access. Their future grandchildren would have access. And I would no longer have complete control over the property. I looked at Mom. "Why would I sign this?" "Because we're family." "That isn't an answer." She slammed her hand on the table. "Sign, or you're not my daughter anymore." The room went silent. Jason looked uncomfortable. Dad stared at the floor. I felt tears building in my eyes. Not because I was afraid of losing the house. Because I was watching my mother turn love into a negotiation. I slowly pushed the contract back. "No." Mom's face changed. "Then we're done." I stood. "Okay." She stared at me. I don't think she expected me to say it. I walked out. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. But the next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. Relief. For the first time, I wasn't trying to earn my mother's approval. I was simply protecting myself. Then the first twist arrived. 3 days later, my attorney called. "Claire, I found something you need to know." "What?" "Your mother contacted the county 6 months ago." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "She asked whether she could place a lien against the property." I froze. "A lien?" "She claimed she had financially contributed to major improvements." "That isn't true." "I know." My attorney had checked the records. Every repair, every tax payment, every mortgage payment, everything was in my name. But there was more. Mom had apparently told a local developer that the lake property would eventually be available for a small family resort project. I couldn't believe it. She wasn't just trying to take my house. She had already been planning what to do with it. I confronted her. "You spoke to a developer." She didn't even deny it. "We could make money from the property." "It's my house." "You don't understand business." "I understand ownership." She rolled her eyes. "That's exactly why you never get ahead. You think everything has to belong to you." I looked at her. "It does when I paid for it." She walked away. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. A week later, I received a letter from the developer's attorney. They claimed my mother had represented herself as having authority over the property. They demanded clarification. I handed everything to my lawyer. Then we discovered something even more disturbing. Jason had already taken a loan using the lake house as collateral. He had given the lender paperwork that made it appear the property was part of a family trust. But the trust didn't exist. My brother had forged documents. I felt sick. He hadn't just been planning to use my house. He had already started using it to solve his financial problems. I called him. "Jason, what did you do?" He started crying. I was desperate. "You forged documents. I thought Mom would get you to sign." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So the entire plan depended on me being bullied into giving up my house. He didn't answer. That silence was enough. My attorney immediately notified the lender and authorities. The fraudulent loan was stopped before the property could be taken. But Jason's financial problems were now his responsibility. And then came the final twist. The developer who had been negotiating with my mother contacted my attorney privately. He had something to show us. Emails. My mother's messages. They revealed that she had been planning to sell part of the property without telling me. But one email contained something even more shocking. She had written, "Once Claire signs, we can finally make the property pay for Jason's debts." I read the sentence twice. Then I felt something inside me go completely quiet. For years, I'd wondered why my mother always defended Jason. Now I knew. She didn't simply think he deserved more. She believed my success belonged to the family. As long as I was the responsible daughter, they could keep using my stability to protect his failures. I stopped fighting emotionally. I let my lawyer handle everything. The trust document was void. The fraudulent loan was canceled. The developer backed away. And Jason had to sell his expensive car and several other assets to repay what he could. Months later, my mother came to the lake house. I was sitting on the dock when she approached. She looked tired. Older. Smaller. "Claire." I didn't turn around. "I know you don't want to see me." I stayed quiet. She sat on the edge of the dock. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I was wrong." I looked at her. "You didn't just ask for my house." "I know. You threatened to stop being my mother." Her eyes filled with tears. I was angry. "You were willing to destroy our relationship over property." She looked down. I thought family meant sharing everything. I shook my head. Family means respecting each other. She started crying. I was scared Jason would fail. He did fail. I know. And you tried to make his failure my responsibility. She couldn't answer. After a long silence, she whispered, Can you ever forgive me? I looked out across the lake. I can forgive you. She looked up hopefully. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get control of my life again. Her face fell. I understand. And for once, she really did. Months passed. I didn't immediately rebuild the relationship. Trust doesn't return because someone says sorry. It returns through actions. My mother slowly changed. She stopped asking for money. She stopped making decisions for me. She stopped defending Jason whenever he made a mistake. Jason eventually got another job. He rented a small apartment. He started paying his own bills. And strangely enough, our relationship improved once I stopped rescuing him. The lake house remained mine. But something about it changed. I no longer saw it as a place I had to protect from my family. I saw it as proof that I could protect myself. One summer evening, I invited my parents for dinner. Not because they demanded it. Because I wanted to. We ate outside near the lake. Nobody discussed ownership. Nobody asked for money. Nobody brought up the trust. For the first time in years, we simply talked. Before leaving, Mom hugged me. I should never have made you choose. I quietly replied, you didn't make me choose between the house and the family. She looked at me. You made me choose between being controlled and being respected. She nodded. I understand now. I watched their car disappear down the road. Then I walked back to the dock. The lake was completely still. I thought about the woman I'd been when I first bought the house. She had believed that saying no made her selfish. Now I knew better. Sometimes saying no is the healthiest form of love you can give yourself. My mother thought she could use the words, family, and daughter to force me into surrendering the one thing I had built on my own. She was wrong. Blood doesn't give someone ownership over your life. Love doesn't require obedience. And family should never come with a signature line. The lake house stayed mine. But the greatest thing I gained wasn't the property. It was the courage to finally understand that I didn't need to give up pieces of myself just to keep people from leaving. Because the right people won't demand that you choose between your home and their love. They'll respect your boundaries. And stay anyway.